Hello, I'm Daryl Dakers. Welcome to Palmetto Scene. In the summer of 2020, the Greenville-based Hampton 3 Gallery held a special exhibit in response to COVID-19. 20 of South Carolina's renowned artists participated in this show, featuring works all created during the first few months of the pandemic. In this story, we'll see how artists react to challenging times and the role art plays in providing solace, connecting communities, and provoking social changes.
Growing up in church, we used to sing a song called "In Times Like These, We Need a Savior. In times like these, we need an anchor." And I wondered, what are the anchors that are holding my artist at this time? In Times Like These was an exhibition that started in July of 2020, and it featured my artist's works that was done during the time of the pandemic. In the middle of March, the gallery closed. I kept thinking about what are my artists doing in the studios. And I thought, I'm going to contact my artist and see what they produced. Because even though galleries have been closed, the creations of the artist have continued. They go into their studios, they create. It's part of who they are.
Obviously, we couldn't have openings, and we still don't have openings and can't. We can have people coming in one-on-one, social distancing and masks, but I had to get the message out there. So I asked all of my artists to do a video talking about their work and how this time had affected them. Artists have a creative spirit and they're willing to try.
Hi, my name's Luke Allsbrook and welcome to my studio.
Time lost the meaning that I was used to having for time.
I've been painting the American South now for over 30 years.
I'm very interested in how the viewer interacts with my work.
This for me has been a time of reflection.
I did start to look at some of these elements a little bit differently. You know, what do the bottles mean? There's a mask.
Part of what I like to do is have it look really nice from any angle.
We are the trees, we are the glacial ice, we are the Tyrannosaurus, we are everything.
I also ask, as I normally do when I do an exhibition, about an artist's statement.
My artists were challenged by this isolation time.
For me, thought processes have been altered.
He had created a beautiful series of work, extremely colorful, positive, Southern images before all of this happened. And Tom said to me, my mind and my hand are not working.
Something about the air out there, that whatever was going on seemed to change what I did and how I did it, or even wanting to do it.
But Tom said to me, I'll try, Sandy.
And on the piece of paper, I painted one silhouette tree.
And then he drew another tree. He looked at this composition as almost like an encyclopedia page, documenting trees.
One thing I thought about was the loss of legendary singer-songwriter John Prine. I listened to a lot of his work during this time because his passing was due to the virus.
And the last album that he had created was Trees of Forgiveness. And so Tom gave the nod to that, titling his work Trees of Forgiveness.
I was extremely influenced by the sudden event of COVID-19, and I tried to paint the rambling waters and the destruction.
Janet Draskin is the oldest artist that I represent. She turned 99 a few weeks ago.
The swirling and the depressing feeling that one gets from being wet all the time, from life and activity to death.
You can see the turbulence with the way that she dealt with the waves.
This COVID-19 has had such an influence on everything that has affected my paintings, my activities, and I'm afraid it's affecting life as we've known it in America today.
And I find that many of my artists, all of them really, their hands are a way of their expression. And sometimes they don't even know what to do with their hands, but they pick up their materials, and their materials start to guide them into creating something.
One of the things that I found during this pandemic was that making pinch pots, with each pinch of the clay, it seemed to absorb some of the anxiety that I was feeling.
She had these beautiful bowls where the glaze was inside, and she called them meditation bowls, lean on me.
Although it's a very simple idea, lean on me, I don't know what I would do without a lot of my friends, that I've had to lean on.
There are many different approaches that my artists used in this show. Some went back to a happier day and brought something forward. Others dealt with social injustice.
I bought the book called Slavery by Another Name. There was one photograph that's about the size of my thumb of a young man tied to a pickaxe and left in the dirt. Just horrific to think about, tied up like an animal, left in the sun.
The reality of convict leasing, which me, as a Southern girl, knew nothing about.
A writer can write a book, a songwriter could write a song, a lawyer could pass a law. What can a painter do? All I can do is paint.
And this painting, which was 8 feet long, took up a whole wall of my gallery. You could see the beauty of the painting and the expertise that Ed Rice has, and the horror of the subject matter.
Paint with conviction and compassion. That was my idea.
The title of this artwork is A Night at Home.
John, he's really one of the most progressive Southern sculptors of our time.
And this was the symbol of our state, naturally.
It had cutout guns on top of a house and so forth.
And this, of course, is like in a danger zone.
On the road underneath, there are these shells, real shells.
In our state, we seem to have a lot of incidents that are domestic violence.
Another issue that we're dealing with during this time.
Often 3 or more generations live in the same space. The blues is what they live every day.
Leo Twigs was one of the first artists to be brought into the gallery. So the gallery has had decades of relationship with him. His voice has been a huge impact in Southern art and beyond also.
Then I decided to put the 2 paintings together.
In his 80s, Leo still has a strong voice.
And then George Floyd was killed.
There's so many issues these days for Leo to consider.
They should left their sheltered spaces and began marching in the streets. And I heard their voices, and I began another painting.
He has found a way to express himself, not just in the negativism of all of this, but also the hope that we can overcome what we've been dealing with and the injustice. In times like these, art has a role. Art can be an avenue for change. Art can make us see ourselves and how we respond to things. Art is part of contemplation. It can be part of solace. It's going to create something different in each person. But I think what this show did is to create more conversation, to have an interaction one-on-one.
Artist Fletcher Williams is no stranger to challenging the landscapes and politics of his home city, Charleston, South Carolina. Williams recently invaded the historic Aiken-Rhett House with his exhibit, Promised Land, questioning the American dream. Who was it meant for? And noting that Black people, even today, have not always been included.
Grass is greener on the other side idea and I'm always thinking of white picket fence. So I imagine that as this promised land. People's, I guess, pursuit of the good life, the perfect life, one of like just basic comfort, safety, privacy, if you want. You're definitely confronted with this work and these ideas and like what they mean to you and how much ownership you take of them and how much they're available to other people, like your space and your privilege. I think that's what is kind of teased out in this exhibition. You wouldn't be confronted with race, I don't think, immediately. I think the conversation could always get there. But as soon as you bring it into this space in the American dream, it's unavoidable. I've always been interested in the architecture of historic buildings. And then for some reason, the picket fence and, you know, the idea of American dream. And then when I'm out here exploring these rural areas and thinking about what it took for Black people to survive when they don't have a place to learn, they don't have a place to, you know, perform their own music, a place to shop for their own food. I mean, you got to be creative, you got to adapt. I'm like, so what did the American dream look like? And I was like, well, what's this picket fence all about? Taking ownership of those ideas that weren't intended to be taken ownership by Black people. So I think the white picket fence is that. It really got me interested. I've seen the white picket fence not even surrounding some of the most beautiful homes. I've seen it in, you know, yards that aren't even maintained. I mean, I've seen the picket fences attached to wire fences. I've seen picket fences that are a foot tall, picket fences that are falling over. I mean, so everybody wants to express that they have some kind of relationship with what this country was intended to offer most people. And so I find it really interesting to just use that object in my work. To bring this object into a space that was, you know, void of the American dream for Black people. I thought it would be an interesting conversation to have because this is essentially a prison. I mean, as grand as it is, I mean, I'm not really, I mean, you're impressed by the grandiosity of it, but then you remember, well, this was built by the people that are housed in those small quarters in the back and all the wealth amassed from that allowed you to create this archetype of power. But also then going back to the fence and then also looking at these brick walls that surround this, we're talking about fear and control and power. And as ornamental and pretty as even a white picket fence is, we're still talking about dividing space. We're still putting space between you and another person. Even when listening to the audio tour a bit at first, I was like, well, this is it's a little joyful. I think there's been some reinterpretation over the years of bringing the Black experience. I think people can still avoid that. When you bring artwork in here to then kind of disrupt the space and confront viewers, there's a different level of engagement that's not happening on a day-to-day basis in these houses. When I moved back in 2013, I got this job at a hotel, which was a really weird space, kind of like those old racial politics at play. I mean, my title was houseman. And then you had, you know, the young white woman who worked front desk, and you had all kind of the back of house people who were, I mean, Black women 2-3 times my age doing laundry. I was just like, this feels like somewhat of a plantation here. I also drove the shuttle. So I was transporting guests to and from Market Street downtown. And during those trips, you know, I'm educating myself on the history of the city because we're going past all the cathedrals, like some important buildings, like I'm directing them to certain restaurants because they're coming down here for Southern food and Black culture. And I also started to interact more with the kids who make roses. They're the stewards of that craft. I mean, they know the craft and it's a way to make money. And they're really good at it. I mean, to whittle that thing that quickly and then they carry around this palm under their arm. I was really impressed. Just appreciating the craft behind it and kind of the whole ecosystem around, the whole economy around palm and roses. And then the kind of the folklore behind that, symbol of everlasting love dating back to the Civil War. I don't know if anyone really has confirmation of that, but it's certainly embedded in the object, in the rose. So when I started seeing signs that called them roaming peddlers. I'm just like, it's a bit insidious. And especially when you have tourists who come here, who's going to take the time to discern between someone who's a part of a program and someone who isn't? That's asking a lot of people who come here. So essentially, they're just going to take the easy route. We're just not going to buy from any of them because they're probably all criminals. And so I thought it was absolutely important to then kind of revise that language, which of course I don't believe the city adopted. But just to, I present them as artisans, and they have the right to be here and create and sell in these places, which for Charleston is absolutely useful to tourism. I mean, this is something that people take away with them. These are one of the few items. There's a lot of things you can take with you. I mean, you may have your receipt from a restaurant or your pass from taking a water tour, but your interaction with black people, and you take away a rose that grew from a palmetto tree here. There's just so much symbolism embedded in that. It's so meaningful. And so I didn't think they had the support that they should have from the city for being such huge contributors. I mean, black people have never been the sole beneficiaries of their contributions to America. And we're going to see that being played out in this city where we're celebrated for tourism and the beauty and the history. No, I can't. We gotta do something about that. They're the women who sold wildflowers down at Broad Street. There's a story about the Peanut Man who was kind of pushed out too, but the city mobilized behind him, and then of course the city retracted their statements and allowed this person to come back. And there's no reason that if we are aware of history and we don't want history to repeat itself, why are we then criminalizing these kids, these black kids, for selling roses? Charleston always takes like these little tokens of black culture, like holds them tight and cherish them. But I think there's a way for me to take something like that, subvert it, and use the beauty of it, the allure of it, and then draw people into issues that I think Charleston still hasn't grappled with yet. There was a lot of crime and I think misrepresentation of black people too. So I started doing these drawings that were quite, I guess, graphic of certain shootings. I would use kind of like historical motifs in the drawings. But I knew that people would see the rose from afar. The frames were very ornate, and so I would capture their attention that way and then bring them into this imagery that wasn't so beautiful. And that's been kind of my strategy, a bit of subversion in response to like the Charleston landscape, the traditionalism of it. A lot of my work is very symbolic, very metaphorical, but that piece in particular, which I consider a rose shroud, was being made. I kind of conceived that idea around the same time of Emmanuel and Walter Scott too. So I've always been kind of compelled to create work that memorialized black people. And so I use the palmetto fronds, the leaves, as the base of it, and then I wove 3,000 roses into it. I wanted to really represent the low country landscape, whether it be a walking path through the center of it or the waterway, but definitely evoke South Carolina. Well, this lays on top of then 10 sheets, which are from a freedman's cottage, which for me are very figurative. They just look, the scale, just the size and the orientation of them look like bodies to me. And so I then kind of, in this procession, laid the shroud on top of these, which then lays on a base that's inverted picket fence. And then we kind of tie the idea of American dream and kind of the history of that. So it's all kind of packed into this one piece. I'm always in the back of my mind looking for a way to push the craft and always looking for new ways to utilize it and kind of bring it into this larger art canon. Because you typically see just the rose, independent of anything else. It's not used in a larger piece of work, but to apply it, to use it as social critique is not very common. So that's really packed into that piece that started in a moment where I was really reflecting on, like, again, a very traumatic time in Charleston's history. I don't even try to control it. I know this stuff is going to like bubble to the surface when I'm like composing different sculptures. My work always seems to fall in place because I'm constantly letting my environment inform me, which of course is Black history, American history, and kind of the challenges embedded within that, the creativity and the adaptation of people to survive here. So there's a bit of mortality always embedded in the work. Well, I guess the shroud piece has significance now. The 9 bouquets of roses, the picket fence. I mean, this stuff has just not been challenged in a long time. So it just makes sense. I mean, it's not that difficult. You know, if you put this stuff in your work, the conversation immediately starts. And that's kind of where we're at. This is a good time to have an exhibition that, you know, speaks about race and politics and how we write history, how we revise history, how we interact with history, how we preserve history. I kind of struggle with it sometimes of not wanting my work or just me being a black artist to be protest, but that's just the nature of it. That's just always going to be a part of my conversation, and I understand that. And so, yeah, these spaces and putting this work out here and, you know, having civic engagement in mind is important and is a part of the work. And coming into spaces like this, we can keep the conversation going and give people a point of entry into the conversation through art is incredibly useful. So black artists, art and activism are one and the same. It's unavoidable, and you have to embrace it.
Our last story comes from our digital series, The Scoop. With over 4.7 million acres of farmland, South Carolina has a robust agricultural industry, leading to a unique food culture. We took a poll and asked our audience, what's the recipe or dish that defines who we are as South Carolinians? Well, you may be surprised to hear it's boiled peanuts, the official state snack.
Before I even had teeth, and the women who tended the nursery would take the boiled peanuts out of the shell and mush them with their fingers and put them into my mouth. So even before I was able to chew them myself, I've been eating boiled peanuts. So we are Boiled Peanuts Y'all, and we've been selling boiled peanuts for about 6.5 years. When COVID hit, we had a lot of our markets and festivals shut down, and we pivoted to internet delivery. So we set up our website, and now people can order boiled peanuts to be delivered fresh to their door every other week in Florence and Columbia.
When Ear and I first started boiling peanuts, I knew that I could take my peanuts to her and she would be a good source of quality control because she'd been eating them since she was a baby. We get the dry raw peanuts, generally from the state farmers market. We go through bushels a week. Boiling peanuts is actually really interesting. A lot of people don't know the boiler's perspective. The actual guy boiling your boiled peanuts, like he's got to sit with the pot for like 24 hours. Keep the fire right, keep the water right, keep the salt right. It's kind of like a ritual of sorts. It's like a big cauldron. And you get to just think whatever you want and make like all this like, oh, all these peanuts are gonna be like super awesome and make everybody happy. And you just boil that and you just think that and you just put that into the pot and then it happens. You got boiled peanuts.
The main reason why boiled peanuts are a southern thing, or specifically a South Carolina thing, is that they were boiled fresh in the locations that they were grown. So originally people started growing the peanuts and boiling them kind of at the end of the season. And so that's why you will only find them in states that grow peanuts. So we noticed that a lot of people that love boiled peanuts seem to come from all walks of life, and we started thinking about why is that, and we kind of think that it sounds kind of funny, but that boiled peanuts really feed the soul. They do that in a lot of different ways. They are really nourishing food, and it's really different than a lot of foods that we get nowadays. It's nice to eat this unprocessed, slow-cooked food. It's really soul-satisfying. There's also a really, unique thing about eating boiled peanuts, which is that you have to slow down when you eat them. People really enjoy being in the moment of eating the boiled peanut, which is really different than a lot of other snacks. It's more than a snack, it's an experience. Time for boiled peanuts, y'all!
Wow. For more stories about our state and more details on those stories you've just seen, please visit our website at palmettoscene.org. Of course, don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at SCETV, #Palmetto Scene. We leave you with tonight's Palmetto postcard from the majestic angel oak tree of the Lowcountry. For Palmetto Scene and all the folks here at ETV, I'm Beryl Dakers. Good night, and thanks for watching.
It's always interesting when people first get here, when they walk around the gift shop and all of a sudden they see the entire north side of the tree, which doesn't have any limbs in the way. The reactions are really interesting, jaw-dropping, and hear a lot of wows and things like that. Even small children get real enthusiastic to get near the tree then. It represents, I think, the history of the Lowcountry in its own way. This tree has been here a lot longer than the colonists. The interesting thing to me is that this was also an Indian site. I occasionally find arrowheads here. We believe the tree is between 400 and 500 years old, probably closer to 500. The species of the tree is Virginia oak. It covers about almost 18,000 square feet as far as the foliage, which is almost half an acre, which is pretty incredible for one tree.